Hey, M.2 NVMe here, and today we are going to be looking at the Raspberry Pi 5. And today we're going to be implanting this thing into a brand new case that's going to then work as a NAS on our network, so network attached storage. So the case that I've picked has been sent to me by SunFounder, and it is the Pironman 5. So this case, it looks absolutely insane off the get-go. It is kind of like a miniature gaming PC. It's got a power button on the front, access to the SD card at the front. It's got a status monitor with IP address and current hardware usage. It's got a spot for 2 NVMe's, and it's got 3 active cooling fans in there as well, all inside of a cool aluminium and perspex case. So let's get it unboxed, have a look at it, and then get it built and get our Pi installed inside of it. So first off, inside the box we have got our manual. This goes through the step-by-steps of exactly how to build your case and what all the individual parts inside the case are going to be and what to expect in there. So we'll put these to one side for now. We've got our perspex side cover with our GPIO access. We've got 2 cooling fans by IceCube. These are RGB, I think, but they are also PWM, so you can control the speed of them through the actual Pi itself, so they don't always have to ramp up and have a really bad curve. We have the main cooler for the Raspberry Pi. This thing is absolutely huge. Look at the size of the heatsink and the aluminium plate to help with cooling there. We have our tiny display that's going to go on the front that's going to show all of our system information and all of our IP addresses. We have a bag full of sticky feet, jumper cables, thermal pads and a real-time clock battery in here. With the micro SD card extension, so this plugs into the Raspberry Pi that allows the SD card to protrude out the front of the Pi. We have a bag full of hardware including standoffs. These all look to be nicely labelled to make it nice and easy to find. We have our power button and additional ribbon cables. We have our main expansion board, so this is what takes the I/O of the Raspberry Pi, i.e. the USB-C and the 2 HDMI's, and converts them into full size and moves them to the back of the tower. We have our NVMe dual slot bay. With a set of tools included, so we have got 2 different types of Phillips screwdriver, and we have also got 2 individually different sized wrenches here. But to be honest, I'll be using my iFixit kit for this instead, as I think those tools are slightly more trustworthy. We have the GPIO extension board that allows us to plug in all of our different things. We have the front case, so here you can see that it's got the Pironman on the front, place for our power button, place for our SD card. We have some pogo pins. These are pogo pins for the power switch. And then we have the aluminium chassis that the whole thing's going to be mounted into. So here you can see that's where our display is going to mount. Really nice powder coated aluminium, and here you can see that we're going to get our power, 2 full-size HDMI's. We're going to have a slot for the camera cable to come out if we want a camera on it. We've got our Ethernet, USB 3 and USB 2. So as far as unboxing goes, that's everything that's in the box. Our plan now is to actually start building this thing up. So when building something like this, one of the most important things is to make sure you've got the correct tools to hand, you've got a nice clean workspace to work with, and as well as that, it's well lit and you've got the time to actually do the project. The last thing you want to do is to step into something and start rushing, realise you don't have the tools that you require, or realise that you don't have the time to actually complete the project you're going to do it, so you end up losing parts and things get misplaced. So once you've got all that sort of stuff sorted, then it's time to actually start putting together the case. So the first step is to actually disassemble the aluminium chassis that comes with it. So to dismantle the aluminium chassis is just 2 screws, 1 in each corner. Now those two screws undone and put to one side, we can now see that the chassis comes completely apart. Next step is to take plate A, which is this one here, and to put our standoffs on there. So we need to have M2.5 screws and M2.5 X8 standoffs. So I'm going to open a little packet of hardware and so we can find that. And like I said, what's really nice about this kit is all of the screws actually come in individual packets that tell you exactly what they are. So for this one here, we need the M2.5 X8s and the 2.5 X4 screws. So first off, it's going to be the screws that go onto the expansion bay. And they go into the 3 screws that are here, and our last one is just over. Here. Next up is the actual standoffs that are going to hold the Pi itself. So we've got M2.5 X5s at the back times 2, and then we've got M2.5 X6s at the front like so. So these two will go into these 2 holes here, and these 2 will go into these 2 holes here. And this will hold the Pi, and as well as that, it'll also hold the micro SD card extender back over here. So let's get those screwed in now. So now that those 4 in, I'm just going to quickly nip them up a bit tighter with the screwdriver. There we go. And that now goes off to one side. Next up, we're going to start building our Pi up, so we're going to make sure that it's nice and ready to go. I've taken the SD card out to make sure that it's all prepped. And the first thing we're going to need is the micro SD card extender. So this is a micro SD card extender, and the way this connects is it goes straight into the SD card reader at the bottom here, and then the rest of the PCB actually overhangs underneath, and that's why we have the shorter standoffs at the back. Now the micro SD card extender is plugged in, we now need to actually put on our USB and HDMI adapter, and that's this board here, and that connects just by going straight into the I/O on the side of the Pi itself. Like so. As you can see now, we've now actually adapted those 2 HDMIs to full size. We've also put our power in here with a real-time clock ready to go. We can now take our provided button battery, which is a 1220 lithium cell, and just gently place that into our real-time clock. Next up is the 4-pin header to go on. So this is a 4-pin header extender, and this goes straight onto the current 4-pin header that's there and pushes just straight down, like so. So next up we need our little 2-pin cable, and that is going to go from our real-time clock connector onto the real-time clock of the board. And that just gently pushes in, like so. Now that that's sorted, it's time to put our PCI Express FPC cable in. And what it says to do here is to gently lift up this clip here. And once the clip's lifted, you need to make sure that the black part of the cable is facing outwards. We insert it between the white layer and the brown layer just here. Once it's in, gently push down on the brown part again to lock it into place. Once it's in, just give it a little tug to make sure it's not going to come out. Make sure both sides are down and level, and just make sure that you haven't pinched it and you're not going to actually end up damaging it. So the black side should be just here like so, so that when we bend this bit over, it is black on the top. So the next part now is to get this inside the actual case. So to do this, we are going to take the case that we've already pre-populated with our standoffs. We're going to gently place the board on top, facing this way. So the SD card to the back and the expansion board to the left. And it should just gently sit on top of those standoffs. And you should find that it sits nice and flat. This then requires you to take the M2.5 18s and screw them into the standoffs just here. So next off is to take our M.2 18s and put them straight onto our board. So 2 of them go into the Raspberry Pi side of things. So here, and here. and the other two go into the actual expansion board. So one here, and then one at the back here. And to secure the rest of the board, we're going to be using some M.2 X4s, and these are going to be going straight into the board as well. So one here, one here, and then one onto that expansion board. So already you can see this Pi is looking really, really cool. The idea of having all this I/O at the back of the board is going to be so cool. Next up is a optional space if you're going to put your web cameras in. So if you're going to do that, you need to put your ribbon cameras in now for that there. So our next step is to add the thermal pad onto the actual board. So the instructions are saying that the thermal pads need to go onto here, here, and here. And just as we've seen this right now, I've noticed that I have left a heatsink on top of this Pi, so that is going to have to come off. So I'll take that off screen right now. Right, so now we've got that heatsink off, let's get these thermal pads on. So that's our first. Second over the power management. And third over the CPU. Bosh. Right, so now it's time to get our cooler on. And the cooler goes on this way round with the fan facing towards the ribbon cable. And to put this in, all we do is line it up with the holes on the board, and then we're going to just gently push down onto the mounting points, like so. Now that that's on there, all that's left to do is to actually get the fan plugged into its port, which is this one just here. Make sure it's plugged into both sides by pushing down. Super duper, our cooling is now in place. We now have a piece of insulation that we're supposed to put onto the board. So that is this piece of clear perspex. And what we do is this is just going to get lined up on top of our aluminium part of our cooling fan and be placed just like that. Next up is going to be the power switch converter subboard we're going to put in. That's this one here, and this is going to mount across here. So the two pogo pins fit into where the power connector goes, and it's going to be held into place with two M.2 X4 screws. And two. And just make sure that you don't catch this 2-pin cable here, and that these two pogo pins go down into the printed circuit board below. We're now going to install our NVMe PIP, so we're going to pull up on this little black cable holder till it's facing vertical. We're going to take our ribbon cable and gently push it in to the board, and then close the cable on top. And that should hold it in place just like so. We're then going to gently turn the board 90 degrees. I'm going to put this pin header onto the pin header on the board. So let's do that now. Like so. And those pins should come all the way through the board, and the board should then rest on top of the power converter and the two standoffs we already put into place. And that once more is going to be held in place by some M.2 X4 screws. So let's get those three into place now. This is the part where we can now fit our NVMe drives or our Halos for AI. I'm not going to put them just yet. I'd like to get the rest of the case assembled and kind of do that last, so we can see how easy it will be to service this once it's built. So next up, we're going to need the other side of the case with all of our GPIO on the back and our fan mounts. And we're going to need our two fans. And these are going to be connected to plate B with some M.3 X10 screws. And the instruction says to mount these with the ice cube facing inward on the logos, and I'm going to have a look at where the cables are going to route to just decide how I'm going to do the cable management. So the instructions says to mount them this way round so that both the cables go into the middle section. So let's get that mounted now. When I'm screwing this type of screw into plastic, what I like to do is just do one turn back till it clicks and straightens up, and then go full ham right, so it just goes in nice and straight. Just show you that again, so go all the way back left till it clicks, and then go down hard right afterwards. Just make sure that the screw's lined up and the thread's going to dig into the right place. So one more time, back until it clicks, and then forward. There we go, so that's our fans now fitted. Next up we need to connect our fans to the I/O hat. So the fans are going to go into these plugs at the end here. That's one. Like so. And it's then time to assemble the two halves of the case together. So what we're going to do is take our GPIO and put it onto the header. And that's why that installation is important there. And then this part of the case will then close in here. So before we close it up though, we need to actually make sure that we get our LCD screen on there. So the LCD screen will be mounted black end up into this board here. So we're going to lift up this connector here, nice and gentle like. We're going to place our cable in, black side facing to the left in this particular instance, or facing up if you've got it up on its side. Then we're going to close the board on top of it. Should look a little something like that. So now when we put these two halves together, you'll see that the screen should bend round and just fit onto here. So that's our next step now, to actually remove the sticky back tape on the back and place it into that square. So just put a couple of screws in to reattach the case together, just to make this next bit a little bit easier. So I'm going to peel that off the back now. Go. And I'm going to pull this off camera for a second, just so I can focus on actually getting it nice and square in that hole, rather than messing it up because I'm trying to do it under a camera. So give me 1 second, I'll bring it back once it's in place. There we go, so that's our screen now in place. So we're now going to go back onto the back of the case and just add the remaining screws. So I put 2 in already just to hold it steady for me. I'm going to put the last 2 in now that that screen is attached. That's 1 and 2. Looking really sturdy now. So it's now time for the acrylic covers. The first one is the front plate, and the first thing we have to do on this one is to fit the power button. So I'm just going to leave the front cover on for now, just to make sure that I don't mark it up. So make sure we undo the nut off the power button here, feed the cable through the hole, feed the nut through the cable, and then we're going to just tighten this back down. And this is one place where I'm going to use the big wrench that came with the kit, just to really yunk that back down home. Beautiful. And that is going to plug into our power extension board that we put on top here. Just like so. And that's our power button in on the board. We're going to flip our case, and it's 4 more sets of screws in these 4 holes here. And I'm just doing opposite corners on this to make sure that it sits plumb. 3 and 4. And then our side acrylic's going to go on like this. I wish I'm going to have to come back over this and give it a quick dust, just because of the papers that actually got stuck inside there, so there's just a little bit of attention and care just to get those little bits out. And that's our side case on. And the final part of the assembly now is going to be the feet. What's nice is these feet are little rubber feet that are going to help with the vibration of all those fans inside. There we go. And our last part now is just this final peel. There we go. As far as the build goes, really, really simple, really, really easy to do. The tools they give you work. I prefer my iFixit ones. What's really nice is you do get a spare pin cable, you do get a spare ribbon cable, or one to use if you're using a web camera. You get at least one of each of the required screws as well for each section of the build. And there's also a bag of jumpers here as well. I think the trickiest part is probably putting in some of the ribbon cables, but that's just part of working with Raspberry Pis. And I'll also say that the GPIO labelling here is quite difficult to get all the bits at, so I just need to get a bit of isopropyl alcohol in there and just give it a little rub to get all that off. So as far as hardware goes, awesome case, really, really sturdy. Love that it's bringing all of our I/O back here. Love that we now have our SD card slot here. We still have access to our classic Raspberry Pi I/O, and it's a really, really sturdy case. As far as wanting to upgrade anything that's inside of the case itself, if we wanted to put some NVMe's in or replace an NVMe with a Halo, it is as simple as taking out these 4 screws. And that allows us to remove our acrylic, and as you can see, we get full access to our NVMe, our power button, our fans, and so on and so forth. So everything that we've kind of installed in here extra, we can get access to very, very easily just by opening that up. So here I've got a pre-populated SD card with Raspbian on it. So let's put that in this front panel just here. And this is one of those spring-loaded SD card holders, so when you push down it springs into place, and when you push out it will also come out. So it's really easy to swap those SD cards if you're running multiple operating systems and really wanting to have a play. So let's put some power in and see what happens. No magic smoke this time. Now let's test our power button. Looks like our Raspberry Pi has sprung to life. And let's go check out the documentation online. Right, so a little bit of tinkering later, I've managed to get the Pironman software installed, and it's now booting up, and here we go. So you can see here that the neon pixels are all waking up and turning on, and the RGB on the fan is also there. I've been onto the web app and I've set it up to make it so that everything flashes rainbow, and I've made it that everything kind of works on breathe. So you should see that the fans are in sync with the NeoPixels that are shining down on the rest of the board. And just to give you a better look at how that looks inside, let's just quickly remove this top cover. So there you go, you can see it's all working absolutely beautifully. Now I've also said that these fans only kick on when it gets to a nice hot temperature, and this fan is also set to automatic to only come on when it's a nice hot temperature. So as far as running speeds right now, the fans are not running at all, they're just off, and the device is nice and cool. So if we just quickly flip it over to our little LED display, you can see that we're currently running at 30 degrees, or just under 30 degrees. So once it gets a bit higher, that will kick in and those fans will start spinning up. So you have your one cooler here and then your 2 coolers here as well for the rest of the case and the board. So while I've got it in this state, what I want to do is I've got a couple of old small NVMe drives. I am going to buy some bigger ones for this particular project to turn this into a desktop NAS. We're just going to install these 256 NVMe's. So I've got one of one type of key and one of the other type of key. So hopefully both these types will work in here. There's only one way to find out. So to do this, the first thing we need to do is take the stickers off the screw holes. So I'm just going to jab my screwdriver in there to pull the first one off. There we go, so they're now both clear. And then I'm going to put in the standoffs that are going to actually hold the NVMe drive in place. That. There we go, it's one. And number 2. And this is then secured into place with the standard screws, as you can imagine. So let's get the first one in place. Drive number 1 in. And drive number 2. This isn't limited to just storage, this can be anything that fits into an M.2 slot. So that could be maybe a Wi-Fi card if you want extra Wi-Fi, or it can be NVMe storage, or you could even go as far as getting some AI cards and putting them in there as well. So as you can see, that was really easy to fit those two drives. It took very, very little effort, very, very little drama. It was 4 screws to remove this panel here to be able to get in there and get at those serviceable parts. So let's get it plugged back in again. There we go. Looking lovely. So they've got some fantastic documentation on their website that goes through every single step and stage of how to install it and what to do, which makes things very, very useful. It allows you to click through each step and then also has hyperlinks to each next part of the setup as well. So as you can see, some really useful pictures here to show you how to set it up. And it also gives you links to all of the ways to install the operating system. Now, I'm not going to show how to install PiOS on this particular video. If you want to find out to do that, go watch another one. What I will show you is that within the setup and install software, and then within the setup on Raspberry Pi, Ubuntu and Kali Homebridge OS, there's a bit that says downloading and install Pironman module, and that leads you to this part of the website here where you are given some commands that you need to copy and paste into your terminal to actually install the module. The steps are really quite simple, really doesn't take that much to do. Once that's set up correctly, you can then actually get access to the web GUI. The web GUI just shows you the temperature, storage, memory, network and processor. Just some nice little displays on there. On this top left hand side here, we can also look at the history and the logs of the device. And over here we get our main menu. So we can choose whether to be dark mode, we can show unmounted disks, we can show all individual cores, we can pick our units, whether it be Celsius or Fahrenheit. We can turn on the OLED display on the front, we can tell it what settings to show on there, and we can also change the rotation and what the timeout speed is going to be. We can turn on and off our RGB lights on the actual Pi itself, and we can also change the settings on the fan here to follow or change the speed. There's also a drop-down box here for the different types of LED patterns you want to have for the RGB. There's also a predetermined set of rules for the fan curve as well. So that makes the whole device very easy to interact with, get it all set up and start playing around with how you want to configure it. Right, so the little case is now set up down here at the edge of my desk, and that's where it's going to live from now on. Really, really liking the aesthetic of it. Makes for a great backdrop piece, and also hopefully when I get my new drives for it, it's going to make for a great NAS. So overall, the device is absolutely fantastic. It took me about 45 minutes to put together, but that was while filming it. Really, really easy to upgrade, really, really easy to maintain. So if you are looking for quite an expensive case that does a really, really good job of making your Pi look cool and also upgrading the usability of it, then this is the sort of thing you need to get yourself. Well, I hope you found this build video and review useful. If you did, please feel free to like, comment and subscribe. Any questions, whack them in the comments. And until next time, happy hacking.